Alrighty.
Okay, all right. So let's rock and roll.
Cool.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Jeff Bullis Show. Today we've got Jonny Hendriksen, and I'm going to read a little bit about him. He's doesn't like to brag, so his bio doesn't really reveal the true extent of what he's done over the years, but we're going to get into that anyway. But Jonny is a serial entrepreneur, and he's got over 20 years of experience in the digital marketing scene, and has had a pioneering impact with the Japanese market, where he founded and listed ValueClick on the Japanese stock market. That pioneering spirit was still alive and well when he founded Shuttlerock in 2011, which is when I actually met Jonny initially. So, Jonny, great to have you on the show. It's I've been wanting to do this for a while. So
awesome. No, thank you for having us. And yep, no, it's excellent.
And so I met Jonny in, I think it was 2011. And I got a very short email because Jonny doesn't like to waste time. So it was a very short email. I think I had a typo or two. And I went, who's this Jonny character? And he said, Jeff, would you like to come over to New Zealand? I think I got the pronunciation right as well. And actually, run a workshop. And these sort of invites you get sometimes that tire kickers, and I went, okay, is this Jonny guy a tire kicker? And anyway, I Googled him a bit and found out that he's quite a successful New Zealand entrepreneur, very understated. And I said, yeah, sure. So he even agreed to pay me money to come over and enjoy New Zealand and talk to some people that he organised on his golf resort just outside Christchurch. So that was a fantastic experience, and that's how I got to meet Jonny. I flew over and we met for the first time, and we ran this workshop in the most stunning location, overlooking Mount Hutt, in this sort of like, I suppose, hunting-like lodge, it's really, I suppose. So, so Terrace Downs is the name of that resort, by the way. And we got to chat. So, Jonny, when I met you, you were doing something, and one of the conversations we had was, I'm a little bit over what I'm doing. Can you tell me a little bit where you were at the time and how you got there?
No, well, you said we owned a golf resort at the time, and it was sort of one of those sort of childhood dreams to sort of get, well, I sort of always thought I'd, get into hospitality. I love people, and I always thought that hospitality would be a great thing to sort of get into once, and I'm glad I've sort of got that out of the system, so to speak, Jeff, because it's sort of ultimately doing that for 5 years. I sort of dawned upon me it's one of the important things in life is to sort of stick to your knitting. That's nice in IT, but it was a five-year stint in hospitality, which had they were by and large quite fun days, but got to meet you and many other people during that time. But
yeah. And one of the things I discovered about you too, as we had chatted, I think the evening after we actually had run the workshop, was that you really were passionate about getting back into the whole digital scene. And I think one of the things when you contacted me, because you found me by one of my blog posts saying that you really wanted to get into digital again. So let's just wind things back a little bit. So you're a serial entrepreneur. So there's something about the entrepreneur in Jonny Hendriksen. So where did that start, Jonny? Can you maybe go back to maybe what you're doing?
I think originally, I grew up in Auckland in New Zealand, and not in a wealthy family at all. And we had a trip to Japan when I was 15, and with the school, and it was a really good thing for the school to sort of say, regardless if your parents had money or not, you had to go and raise the money yourself, which I think was actually quite as important actually as the trip itself in reflection. And so from the age of sort of 13 or 14, when we're saving up to get there, control of these various sort of entrepreneurial ways to sort of to save money for this trip. And I think that was probably what sparked it in the early days. I subsequently went to Japan and worked as a doorman in Japan first, and I couldn't get to Japan quick enough at 18, and started. I started my first business when I was about 24 or something like that. And
and what was that, Jonny?
So I worked for Canon, the camera company, when I was 23, 24, out of school as temp staff. The temping agency wouldn't give me a pay rise. But Canon, where I was going, was actually very happy. So one of the managers at Canon, or senior manager at Canon, said, well, why don't you set up your own company and we'll just contract directly to you, and the rest is history. So
okay.
That was very kind words from that guy, and so I ended up setting up my first company, and then ultimately becoming a temp agency myself, ultimately going forward. But and then really stumbled on the internet in 1997.
Yep.
And really sort of got sort of into the internet space, and really the only companies that were around in those days were sort of Yahoo and a sprinkling of others.
Yeah.
And so if you really wanted to get serious about some of the opportunities in the internet space, was either go and work for one of those companies or start up something yourself. So and I guess that's sort of entrepreneurship in its thing. You've got to put one step in front of the other, and then and just see where it takes you. So my business partner and I, Tim Williams, who's based here in Auckland, I think we borrowed about $5,000 at the time, and set on this voyage of we were going to set up actually a business shirt company that we would sort of sell business shirts to Japanese business people
online. Yep.
Online, and have all your measurements in a database online. The idea was fantastic, but when we actually got to it, it was it was such that it was really actually difficult to get your own .com or .cojp domain name, actually the hosting, and it wasn't as easy as it is today to just get an email address and so even though we had this great idea for a business, we couldn't actually follow through with it because it was just too difficult to actually execute. So we thought, actually, hold on a second, we need to actually go into the facilitating business, which was then became one of Japan's first web hosting businesses, and that really took off. So
by facilitating, you mean hosting? Is that what you mean?
Helping other businesses to come online and in the hosting business. So
because you discovered a problem, which was it was hard to get on. Yep.
I think that's the sort of the story of sort of the online, particularly digital, is like it's just that constant pivoting really, and it's sort of like, well, I want to be able to do something, but then actually there's a larger problem that sort of presented itself. So we sort of pivoted into that hosting business.
Right.
So
then you met Jim Zali, and also you stumbled or got into ValueClick. Can you tell us about ValueClick? Because you've done the facilitating.
That was really, an interesting time. So the hosting business was going well, but in those days, you'd set up your customers, they'd set up a website, but they'd get almost zero traffic because no one knew they existed. So what would happen is all of this hype of the internet of saying, well, I've now got this beautiful website with a .com name or whatever, but no one could find you. Yet all the traffic was actually going into individuals who were making phishing sites, and it was almost like they were like blog sites of today, really. I mean, everyone's GeoCities and the old days, and so there was this mismatch in traffic that was going on the internet. So a company out of Santa Barbara called WebIgnite, a guy called Brian Courier, founded WebIgnite, and he was doing listing ads with Jerry Yang from Yahoo in the early days.
Oh, we're back. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So that was under the name ValueClick. In the US, they were just getting underway, and so anyway, Tim and I, we bought the license for ValueClick for Japan, and set forward and just took off. It was absolutely crazy. So it's a whole idea of we would get websites and put banners on those websites, and we'd pay per click.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it just sort of took off. Yeah.
So that was called Web Ignite, and
So the actual founding company of ValueClick was called Web Ignite in the US,
right.
and then very soon ValueClick actually spun out to become ValueClick in the US, and then we became ValueClick Japan in Japan. So yeah.
Now, from my reading, I've discovered that ValueClick introduced one of the first pay-per-click advertising models. Is that correct?
Yeah. So that's what the whole model was basically the pay-per-click. Was probably the first pay-per-click network, and then Jim Zali was an investor, and then came on as the CEO, and then chairman, sort of CEO and chairman, and sort of took it from strength to strength. And then maybe ValueClick in Japan, we did very, very well. I listed it on the Tokyo Stock Exchange when I was 30, and that was a really amazing. That was a fun ride, and really growing the business in May 2000. And then the dot-com crash sort of came very soon after that. So we just sort of went public at the right time, got out the door,
okay,
and then bang, the crash sort of happened. So yeah.
So timing is everything, and I know that's the conversation we've had over the years since we met. And just like you talked about, you had a great idea for selling shirts online. It was a great idea, but maybe before its time. And so ValueClick launches on the Japanese stock market. So did you stay on?
No, I stayed on for a while, and then I was put in a position in the US to do ValueClick International, and then I ended up coming back again, and then long and short, we got bought out in something in 2000. It was about 2003, I think, 2004, 2004, we got bought out. And then I stayed on for a little bit, and then subsequently stepped down. And then a few years later, came back to New Zealand, and sort of moved back to New Zealand when we bought the golf course. So yeah.
Right. Okay. Now, there's a lot of entrepreneurs have mentors to help them, guide them along the way, and part of what I want to find out more, and I've actually met this gentleman, and so
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So can you tell me a little about who was one of your mentors or your main mentor along the way?
So his name's come up several times, but I'd say Jim Zali. And he's a very he didn't graduate from high school. I think you certainly can go to university, and then he joined the elite 101 Airborne, which is the parachute elite of the military, and then he went on and became at a very young age senior sales executive at RCA, and he's taken he's done a lot of acquisitions and so forth, and so no, he's very, very down to earth, great sense of humor, but very, very very, very astute when it comes to running businesses, and he's been really, really great on that front, and been a wonderful mentor over the years.
Yeah. I actually got to meet Jim in Las Vegas for lunch, and he's a fascinating guy, and he's now in his 70s. So, and you did warn me about Jim that he's deaf in one ear, and I had to talk to him the other side. So I was very aware of that, and as my hearing, as I get a little older, is suffering as well. We had a fantastic conversation over lunch at one of the casinos, as you do in Las Vegas. So it was great to meet Jim, and he's now semi-retired pretty well, isn't he? I think he does a little bit of...
Yeah, he's on a couple of boards and so forth, but very, very smart guy. Very funny and very smart, yeah.
Yeah, it's great that you had someone mentoring you over the years, and we've heard some various entrepreneurs.
And Jim, Jim's got his the four legs of the Jim Zali stool, or a good business model has got those four, and I think he's one that he's always sort of drummed into. Anyone who's worked for Jim Zali will sort of know what those four are, and that'd be something we can talk about on this podcast as well. Really.
Okay, well, so we don't forget, can we maybe tell a little bit about those four pillars that?
So the four legs of the stool quite cool. Well, key to the success of any business, really, and the first being the size of the market. So you're always wanting to be going into business which has got a good size, good decent opportunity and size of spend. Spend. Second being, in no particular order, but the second being your margins, your gross margins. So Jim always be quite, making sure that you've got healthy gross margins and profit as well. So you've actually got you've got a proper business model. Third would be making sure you've got cash on hand. So you've always got enough cash to be able to fund yourself through it. And then probably the last, which is probably the one which a lot of new entrepreneurs anyway forget, is really is the acquisition cost of a customer. So what it actually costs you to actually get a customer. So it's all fine to sort of say, well, I've got this perfect business model and it all works really well, but I haven't really figured out, what it actually costs to get new customers. And those are the four. And generally you'll see any good business model and we've got all those four really, really well worked out. So they've been really useful over the years.
Yeah, and I remember us having that conversation as we, and we'll get to Shuttlerock in a minute. But so basically, you're saying the size of the market is very, very important. One of the legs of the table to make for a business and an entrepreneur. The other one was make sure there's good profit in it. Cash on hand, especially in this.
Not just good profit. There's good margin.
Good margin.
Yeah. Actually sort it. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, yes, profit, but you basically have got a really good looking P&L, which has got good, properly well structured around, good, healthy margins. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing that is very, very important, and especially in the new software as a service type industry. This is, and we'll get to that in a minute. And the other one was the acquisition cost of the customer. And I think the other one that is right next to that, maybe in that same pillar, is lifetime value of the customer as well, I think, was the other one that I remember, Jim, you talking about. So let's fast forward a little bit. So you've sold out of, ValueClick. You're living the life. You've bought a golf resort, Terrace Downs, and you're watching the mountains in the distance, and you're living in Christchurch. And that's when I got your email. Said, like your content, Jeff, because you found me online, come over and do this. So we got there, and you sort of, over dinner, you said to me, look, I'm really bored with this hospitality industry. I know what I don't enjoy now. It took me 5 years to discover it. I think you sort of, I don't know if it was the term you used, but it felt like you were herding cats with the hospitality industry in terms of trying to manage all the people, especially in hospitality. And so you said you'd started a new company. So over dinner that night, you said, and you mentioned the name of the company. Now, Shuttlerock is the name of the company that you want to get back into the digital game again. You're over hospitality, you want to get back into the digital game. So tell me about what Shadowrock means, because I thought initially Shadowrock was about, because Christchurch had its big earthquake back then. Hundreds of people died. It was quite a tragedy, and you had real estate there and your homes were damaged. So Shadowrock, can you tell a little bit about the name? Because I think it's quite an interesting story about what it really means. I thought it was about, the rock shaking, but it wasn't.
Yeah, no, the name's actually really is actually the name behind it is actually cool. I mean, during after the Christchurch earthquakes, a friend of mine used to go to university with the commander of spatial discovery and or the pilot is Eric Bow, who interestingly is has become a friend, and when he's been to our place a couple of times since subsequently coming back to New Zealand, but he's also the pilot of the Boeing Starliner that's going to space later this year, first manned non-NASA space vehicle that's going into space later this year. But we're very fortunate to have the astronauts of Spatial Discovery come to the resort. And it was ironic, it was actually a week after them being in the Oval Office with President Obama. It was very cool, and be able to spend 3 or 4 days with the astronauts all in their kit, and we got all the local children together. And,
okay, that's pretty cool.
It was really special, very special. I remember having dinner with them one night, and we were talking about Shuttlerock, about the shuttle program, and how it was coming to an end, and he would be explaining how it docks with the space station, and you've got two joysticks, and they're going 28,000 kilometers an hour, and just very surreal type sort of talks. But, so we founded the company. I founded the company in 2011, which is the last year of the shuttle program, which for many years was the hope, and probably one of the most significant technological sort of things that the human race has done in the last century, is being able to send a shuttle to the International Space Station, and for that to come to an end. So I thought of it when and it sort of very much represents innovation and hope and all of these really cool things going forward, and new frontiers and all that. So I thought, well, when my new company, when I set it up, it was the last year of the shuttle program, so that we've got to call it. It's got to have a shuttle. It's got to have a shuttle.
Right. Okay.
These guys were so cool. It's just and then when we're having dinner, we were talking about about fear in space. What makes you the fear of dying, I guess, if something is coming. And the number one thing is that they want to make sure that everyone is cool and calm and no one loses it, really. And I think one of the astronauts patted Eric on the back and said, "Oh, he's our rock." And really, the rock is the commander, the cool, calm, there for you at the right time, and someone is a trusted party. So Shuttlerock literally is the commander of this spaceship going forward. So basically an innovative company, but it's also a company that you can rely on and trustworthy and so forth. So Shuttlerock.
Okay.
Quite symbolic, but anyway, slightly long-winded, but it'll give you.
That's absolutely fine. When you told me the first time what it really meant, after thinking it was all about shaking rocks, it was a little different, which is great to hear. So now, Shadowrock started. So you launched it. You've got this little office in Rangiora. You've got the CFO that you're using at the resort, Colin Cadigan, who I've got to know, and he's just a great guy. And so you're in Rangiora. You've just bought a new home there to escape, the damaged one in Christchurch. And what was the first business idea that?
I knew you were going to ask me this, Jim.
Because we're going to talk about pivots, right? So
yeah, I knew that. Well, I was going to say pivoting. So look, I don't know what it is. But when I started ValueClick, it was around business shirts, but this next one was around t-shirts. So there's obviously something to be said about it. If Jonny starts a business, it starts with some form of some apparel.
Okay.
There might be something in it, sort of, But and actually, Jim Zaley, when I showed it to him, he said, "Jonny, you'll probably be doing something different in a year," which is probably a really polite way of saying that's a silly idea. But hey, the whole concept really, I've always loved content and creative and so forth. So it was really around sort of having a network of designers that could design content for charities, and then they would be printed on a t-shirt. So it's very much inspired after the earthquakes. So we built the technology, and we've got Colin and Dave. It was the programmer. We built that up, and look, it didn't really go that well. And what we learned from it was that if you've got a designer totally removed from Christchurch trying to design something meaningful for that charity, it's very hard to do. You have to be. So really, what we learned is that content or creative has to come from sort of a source really closely associated or from within, who's actually almost been through it for them to be able to convey that properly. So that whole concept of really, so that didn't really work too well. And the marketplace was not all that that big for it. There's a sort of a next pivot was sort of a which everyone is probably the funniest of them all, was sort of going, well, we know that the content has got to come from within, and the t-shirts are going to work. So, but we all need the same software. So we momentarily went into, we said, oh, well, schools, what sort of content do schools have? And they've got recipes. So we decided we have a bit of a play, a bit of a go with that to sort of see if we could use that same type of technology to go into cookbooks, which I don't know if we actually made one. So it was only a very momentary thing. And then, having to deal with sort of PTAs and all that, it was like,
yes.
What are we doing here? And the next pivot really, same technology there. We're saying, well, for companies, so corporations, what content do they have which is really valuable to them? It's user generated, it's customer generated content. So then we sort of got our first bit of wind in the sails, and we were able to sort of get moving, where we would build this, these plugins that go into websites that would allow us to bring in content from Instagram and so forth, APIs, and also for brands to be able to upload their own content. So there's a bit of a pivot. It all sort of makes sense along the way, but they were definitely little pivots and as we were improving.
Yeah, and so user-generated content came from the social media networks, wasn't it? So that was the main aim. Yeah, and
direct uploaders and direct uploaders.
So direct uploads from people via phones. So it's both mobile and social, I suppose, user-generated content strategy, which is where Shadowrock started to get some traction. Now, there was one aha moment which happened when you invited a British backpacker to paint your fence. Can you tell me more about that? So that was a moment where we were going okay, but nothing really was sort of firing. And we were quite lucky to have this lovely couple, Aaron and Lauren, come and stay with us. And it just was absolute fluke that Aaron saw these photos and said, "Hey, why don't you animate them? We could turn them into ads." And I said, what are you talking about? So he very swiftly, and I think the team thought I was nuts, because he'd sort of, this backpacker's just come into our lives, and we've going to be doing our next big pivot here. But we've never looked back since, and that was sort of the defining moment. And I'm very proud of Aaron. He's gone on from being literally sleeping in the back of his Subaru legacy to now basically running. He runs all of our creative services department, which is 100 odd people, and a magnificent leader. And doing really, really good, and incredibly innovative. And we're doing stuff around Oculus and all sorts of things. He's a very creative person. Yeah, and Aaron did come though had gone to university, I think in London or UK.
University, which I think at the time a lot of his friends and so forth, were sort of in those days were sort of quite sort of giving him a bit of stick over doing an arts. What are you doing an arts degree for? What's that going to be any good for?
Yeah.
How's that working out? And he's working out pretty good, actually. So.
Yeah. So hiring him to actually paint your fence ended up being the next pivot when he came up with the idea to create.
They come from you've got to keep your eyes. The pivots come at the most unlikely of times, and there's that ability to be able to keep your eyes and ears. Alert at all times.
Okay, and this is now I'm going to segue into something that I discovered about you about a year ago, and I didn't know this, and because you have a certain philosophy in life that has served you in business as well as in life, and what you told me last year is that you expected over a dinner when you're on vegetarian, also not drinking alcohol at the time, I remember. And we'll get to that a little bit. But what was interesting is that you told me that you expect the right people to show up in your life when you need them. Now, can you explain a little bit more about that?
Well, I don't expect, but I think things, tend to, I think life without over-engineering it is probably a better way to put it, to be honest. I don't think people not always show up. I mean, I think there's a case of, but I do think, there's no need to sort of over-engineer things, and a lot of the signs will show themselves if you're, alert and
willing to listen.
Willing to look and listen. And, some people might say that they don't, what do you mean they don't show up? But there's actually more goes on around you every day than most people care to, I think they care to understand, really. So I think it's sort of that awareness type thing, really, that if you are aware of your surroundings and what's going on, more actually does present itself than you might think.
Yeah. And this philosophy of life and business, which is not overthinking things, is you've kept things pretty simple, which I really enjoyed. We've worked together over the years, and I've been on the board, Shuttlerack, disclaimer, by the way. But you shared with me a book, okay, and it's a great little simple book called The Tao of Pooh, where it is where Winnie the Pooh's, the story of Pooh is actually used to carry and make an understanding of what Taoism's about. So, and I actually did read that book, and I remember reading it next to Sydney Harbour about 12 months ago. And I've certainly taken some elements of that and to, I suppose, help with awareness and also to live life and, evolve how I live life and work in business. So I'd like to thank you for sharing that with me. Actually, it was yeah. So
I've been 21 years in Asia, and look, I mean, particularly the Taoist way of thinking. It's obviously thousands of years of Chinese philosophy, Taoism and Confucianism there. But I find it fascinating that there is thousands of years of wisdom there that are in many of those Asian. And look, it's taking out of those those snippets of wisdom that are useful, and I really like that. A lot of the learnings that come from that, and how you can sort of bring them into your everyday life. I think it's I think there's a lot that can be learned from those cultures and philosophies.
Yeah. So along with that philosophy, and that comes very much from living in another country that you got to experience, Asian culture, and you're willing to learn from that by watching and being observant and being aware. So, what are some of the what do you have a morning ritual or routine that serves you in terms of getting things done? It may have evolved over the years, or any really important things that help you through each day.
Yeah, look, I think it's important to create just to create space for you. I think for yourself, I think is quite key. I don't have so much of a ritual as much as it's I've always slept well, so make sure you get a really good night's sleep. And I'm generally up I'm up generally really early, I enjoy the quiet and peace of morning. I don't necessarily have too much of a ritual. That sort of varies, throughout the year a little bit. But fundamentally, try and create as much sort of space, and don't worry about doing nothing. I mean, the art of doing nothing is quite a key thing too, to sort of empty the mind a little bit and empty and doesn't necessarily mean meditation like that. Meditation is one form of that, obviously, but I think actually being able to sort of just create these pockets of quietness is really important. And then from there comes a lot of great, I think, good ideas and action items and so forth from that. So not so much of a ritual, and I don't like to. I'm not too much of a sort of regimented sort of person, to be honest. But
yeah, it's very interesting about giving yourself the space and permission to actually. Absolutely. And it's not doing nothing, I suppose. It's giving yourself the space for inspiration to show up, which comes from the inputs. And I think I certainly watch a lot of people. They've got music on all the time. They've got earbuds in. They're always watching something on the screen, and
or 3 screens going, and it's just like they don't know why. Not much to sort of present themselves. So I do actually try and be able to try and disconnect, and and it doesn't mean for hours and hours on end. I mean, it's just but these little pockets and that there are really important.
So let's sort of go back to Shuttlerack in terms of where Shadowrock is up to, and that inspiration where you're turning static images, user-generated content, and also customer content into video ads. So, what were some of the milestones that have been significant over the last couple of years?
I think a few years ago, 3 years ago, we won the Facebook Global Innovation Award, which was for an app that we built. But since then, we've gone from strength to strength. We've now got 4 offices in America, 3 in Europe, 2 in Asia. So we're now a fully global business that's run out of New Zealand, little old Nelson in New Zealand.
Yes, beautiful spot.
And what we do is we take still images, very easy inputs, and then be able to turn them into 6-second or 15-second, 30-second videos, video ads. So it's a very much a lightweight, very, very easy way to be able for advertisers to be able to make particularly mobile optimized video ads, at scale. And there's a well-known comment that was made by the head of marketing for Pepsi a few years ago, which was, say 20 years ago, or might have been 15 years ago, on a budget of say $4 million, we were making sort of 4, or say $2 million, we were making say 4 pieces of content, which would have been used as TV commercials, and it would have taken about 7 months to make them. Now on the same $2 million, I need between 400 and 4,000 pieces of content, and I need them in not 7 months, not even 7 days. I might need them in 7 hours. So there's this whole transformational thing going on there where I need a lot more lightweight video. I need it in all the different sizes. You've got Instagram story, you've got all the different media, the population of digital media. You're going to need a lot more different languages. You've got lots of more iterations. It's a far more complex beast. So what we do is we make it very, very easy for marketers to be able to, take something as simple as a product shot and a logo and a little bit of a copy, and turn that into a 10-second video or something like that. So and within say 48, 72 hours. So I mean, I think that really we're saying video should be as easy to order as ordering a pizza or something like that there, so that it's really fast, it's fast turnaround and so forth. So it's a really exciting space to be in, and huge market potential. We play nicely with creative agencies and media agencies, so we're not necessarily disrupting. We're a huge facilitator and lowering that barriers and so forth. And then for brands direct, we work really well with in-house brand teams, and then obviously the media companies, Facebook and Google, and the likes of TikTok and so forth in that as well. So I mean, I think one of the biggest sort of barriers to a lot of advertisers spending on a lot of these platforms is the fact that they need, a lot more personalized content, video. They need it fast. They need it beautifully done, but they don't have budgets that are historical budgets, which are really, and they want, and there's a lot more sale dates throughout the year and a lot more cross-border type stuff going on. So the landscape is incredibly complex. So it's being able to sort of make that nice and easy to for brands to be able to do that without sucking up a huge amount of their time and so forth. Right? So, the hardest thing has been around templated tools. Are very much there's a lot of hard work still that needs to come in. So we're very much make the briefing process really easy and leave all the design to us. And we've got our own in-house design studios that we run all the designs ourselves and stuff.
What's impressed me is what the team and you have done is to actually be able to create content at scale. And that is one of the biggest challenges as we've over the years. And it's a challenge for everyone, whether you're a blogger, digital publisher, or a video creator. And a video especially is hard to create professionally, quickly, and cost effectively. So what other tools are you using? Like how's artificial intelligence and machine learning, how's that playing out?
We're trying to keep it really simple at the moment, Jeff. I mean, I think ultimately, yes, the world will go a little bit there, but we're trying to solve a much more simpler problem, right? That's imminent right now for marketers. And I think that's if too much of sort of AI and so forth can actually sound quite jazzy, but can actually cloud what the actual problem that's being confronted at the moment. And so as we move on, going forward with data and so forth, we'll start to look at some of that. But at the moment, we're trying to keep our proposition, the pain point that we're trying to solve nice and simple.
Yeah. Now there was, I don't know whether you want to talk about this or not, but there was a recent acquisition of Shuttlerock of a company which sort of keeps humans in the mix, especially in terms of scaling this.
Oh, we haven't. No, that hasn't come through.
Okay.
So just off the cards for the moment. But,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. So Shadowrock in 2020, it's the Roaring 20s, and you've got a global offices everywhere. So I think what have we got? About 100. There's about 150 staff or something now on board.
Yeah. So yeah, no, look, it's an exciting year ahead. I mean, there's more going on in the video space. Look, I mean, obviously topical for us at the moment is coronavirus, which I was not going to bring up today, but that's sort of something.
Okay.
It's sort of it's I like any time, with growing a business, you have to be, you have to roll with the punches. So it's really making sure that we're, navigating our way through what could be quite a difficult 2020 if things sort of, get change dramatically to the worst. But look, I mean, the proposition and what we do, I think really is really positive though. I mean, I think if we're making it easier and for brands to create that lightweight video. So I think in any market, we believe we're in a position that we can do really, really well.
Yep. So. Cool. Yeah. So I suppose just before we wrap it up, Jonny, I know you're busy, and I just so if you've mentioned the 4 pillars of the table as an entrepreneur, we've covered those. To aspiring entrepreneurs and people in business, everything has its challenges. What are some of the big? What's maybe some challenges that you've faced?
Well, I think the biggest thing, Jeff, along over the years, I mean, it's all about people. So the first thing is actually really getting great people to, I think that, and getting good people. But to get good people, I think it's actually I guess the hardest thing for many businesses is actually creating, a business model that, going back to those 4 pillars, that actually fits into those 4. It's tough to be able to get a business that's got good margins and is scalable, and so forth. So actually, I think probably one of the most important things is actually patience as well. I mean, I think we've been going for 8 years. Building good businesses takes time, and I think that you do see a lot of entrepreneurs that just want to go there immediately, but the reality is it does take time. So, and just to figure that out until you get it and until you get it right.
Yeah, I certainly admire. I've been watching you over the years, and we've talked a lot. And I think you've got a couple of superpowers that watch and have experienced. Number one was your ability to build a team and a culture. And I know culture is really important to you. And I think one of the superpowers that you have in that space is that you make everyone feel special. And I think that's really, really important in terms of you've got that sort of capability and charisma, which I've admired over the years. The other superpower I think you have, Jonny, is that persistence and patience to play the long game. And Shuttlrock has needed that. Sometimes it's lasting. Sometimes it's just lasting long enough to actually get to the, to get it profitable.
Thank you for that. I mean, that's very kind words. I think it is all about enjoying the journey. I think that's, I think being patient in the sounds, it sort of almost sounds like a negative. It's sort of like, be patient. If you flip it on its end, it's actually enjoy the journey, right?
Yep.
So it's actually, rather than it sounding too negative, like patience, because that sounds like you're slow, or you're not hungry enough, or you're waiting, or it's actually probably not really patience. It's actually more just, well, it is patience. Take your time, figure it out. But whatever you do, make sure you enjoy that journey, because it's rather than have sort of when the company's XYZ size and so forth, it's you don't want to be. It might take some time.
Yeah. I think that's what a lot of people discover. They're going, okay, I've exited, I've sold my company for X. I can now put my feet up. I've arrived. And what we all discover as human beings, that the joy is in the journey. It's not arriving, because we never arrive. And I think, the philosophy, especially the Taoism and Confucianism, it's basically the journey is what it's all about. And I think as human beings, we struggle with that tension between success and just enjoying the journey, and giving out space and permission to actually enjoy it along the way with its, because it's going to get tough and there's going to be challenges. So just to wrap it up, John, what, if there's one thing you'd like to share with the viewers, just one thing that you would like to share with entrepreneurs that maybe are on the journey or are about to start, is what's one piece of advice that you could leave with us today?
Yeah, I think, and it goes back to that, to the journey, but it is about having fun. I mean, the reason, you've gone into business for yourself is that you want that freedom to be able to do what you want to do. And, I guess that's one of those things why a lot of people actually go into business for themselves. And I don't want to, particularly, people, they want to give it a challenge. So, I think the main thing is to be able to do it for a long period of time. And that, if it takes 10 years or 15 years to build a good business, it's going to have to be something that you enjoy.
Yep.
And or it's going to be a very long.
Yeah, strange about that.
It's going to be a very long 15 years. So it should almost get to a stage where it is, coming to, that's really, really important. There's a great book which is From Good to Great, which is by Jim Collins, which has got a really, really, really lovely thing in there called, I think it's called The Hedgehog Marketing or Positioning or something. Anyway, it's basically three circles which are overlapped.
Yep. And I've heard of it. Yep.
So you've got the top circle, which is, business is about doing something that you're very passionate about.
Yep.
And then this bottom right-hand circle is, there's got to be a financial, what's the financial reward or the economic side of it. That's got to be working well. And then the third one is, what can you become number one in the world at? And the convergence of where those three sort of match in the middle is really the sweet spot. And once you've found that sweet spot is when it's, often is the case, it's all off to the races. So, I think that really summarizes it really, what are you passionate about? What can you be the number one in the world at? And then what's the economic model? And then, crack that and she's all go. So,
right.
And,
at the
end of the day too, I think you just got to be tough too. It's because it's not all fun. There is some hardships along the way. But
and being resilient is obviously an important characteristic as an entrepreneur, because it's all, like I said, it's not a bed of roses. There's going to be tough times, and realize that they do pass. And being resilient, and resilience is something that I really value. So. Thanks, Jonny, for sharing your story. I've learned a lot today, actually, that we haven't actually talked about. For me, it just gives me really great context about your story and your journey. And I think it's just a fantastic story that I've been wanting to share with the world for a long time. Because, really, it's the hero's journey. It's basically, and that's what we're trying to share with the world is, okay, what inspired you? Basically, who's supported along the way, the mentors, what are the resources you had? What are the challenges? And what do you bring back to the world to share that is your gift? And you're certainly doing that and have done that. And that's... it's been great to call you my friend, as well as working together. Likewise. So thank you very much, Jonny. May 2020 and beyond be a fabulous journey. And I
look forward to catching up, hoping to get to Sydney at some stage too. So look forward to, now that I'm having the odd drink or two, I look forward to having a glass of wine with you in Sydney.
Okay, that'd be great. All right. Thanks, Jonny. Okay.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks a lot.